Good evening. My name is Sarah Giesen. I'm a graduate of the University of Florida and a teacher in the Gainesville area. 3 years ago, I met my husband, Matt, a 24-year-old packaging science major from Ponte Vedra. Matt worked at Publix as a manager. Among his many interests, Matt had an ever-evolving passion for sports. Sports Center played within our home at all times. Matt created endless Excel sheets with fantasy football statistics. It was not by choice that I knew the entire starting lineup of the Minnesota Twins. He lived and breathed sports. It didn't matter the subject matter. I loved that he was unapologetically passionate about something. On July 16, 2014, a popular ESPN anchor by the name of Stuart Scott was named recipient of the Jimmy V. Perseverance Award. Stuart's acceptance speech outlined what he considered the secret in tackling cancer. Rightfully so, Matt became obsessed with his words. I think we watched the speech 5 times at home. He sent the ESPN web link to friends and to family. I even remember Matt streaming the speech through our car Bluetooth. For the purposes of this speaking event, I Googled the video yet again, but I memorized his words long ago. And he says, "You beat cancer by how you live, why you live, and in the matter in which you live. So live. Live. Fight like hell, and when you get too tired to fight, lay down and rest and let someone else fight for you." Stuart's words gave Matt a sense of empowerment. He didn't need to physically eradicate cancer in order to win the battle. Rather, Matt would conquer this fight mentally. His life experiences but a testimony to his success. And that's just what he did. In the early stages of Matt's diagnosis, the oncologist would confirm the presence of synovial sarcoma in his lower right waistline. Clear margins surrounded the soft tissue mass, thus suggesting a positive prognosis. Matt underwent 8 weeks of extensive radiation, 6 hours of intrusive surgery, and 3 consecutive weeks of in-house elective chemotherapy to prevent reoccurrence. And like many others, I would imagine, Matt and I became accustomed to positive CT scan results that validated stable conditions. 2 years later, on a hot Tuesday afternoon, Matt called me while on a field trip with my second graders. I quickly answered to receive the expected green light of health, just as I had done so many times before. This phone call, however, was different. Matt asked where I was, who I was with, and when I would be done. His concern for my state quickly changed the dynamic of our conversation. Results of the scan indicated that the cancer had spread to his pelvic bone and metastasized to several nodules within his lungs. I had never taken a day off from work, but the following day we played hooky. The news had literally rocked our world. Under the advice of a friend that's actually here tonight, I created a GoFundMe account requesting of others that they support Matt in forthcoming treatment cost. 2 weeks later, we had raised $13,000. That number, the outpouring of generosity, was but a small inkling of Matt's character. He lived his life for others, and in his time of need, others were willing to lay down their life for him. Weeks later, we would travel to MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, Texas, to meet with a sarcoma specialist. We discussed treatment options with the orthopedic oncologists and an aggressive chemotherapy regimen with the Department of Hematology. The day arrived that Matt would undergo surgery to biopsy his pelvic bone. Sitting in the surgery waiting room, I remember reflecting on the difficult decisions we were making, the change in our quality of life, the seriousness of his prognosis. 24 years old, life experience had aged me beyond my years. I was ushered by the surgery receptionist into a private conference room where the orthopedic surgeon would debrief me on the results of the procedure. I was caught off guard when he asked how old I was. He asked how old Matt was. He asked how long we had been together as a couple. With each response to these questions, the surgeon became increasingly somber. In every attempt to avoid complete breakdown of emotions, I dismissed the weight of the room. And after a long pause, the surgeon looked up from the floor. Tears welling up in his eyes, he said, "Matt has 5 years, 5 years max." I moved from the conference room to recovery, debilitated by these words and buried beneath the pressure to now play messenger in delivering the news to Matt. Between sips of Gatorade, Matt asked what the doctor had said. And unable to withstand the pressure, I took in a long breath and let out the earth-shattering report. Matt paused. He closed his eyes, leaned his head back onto the pillow, and lay motionless. Watching the wheels turn inside his head, I held his hand as he mapped out what would be the short remainder of his life. He turned, wiped away his tears, and took in a breath similar to mine. 5 years, huh? That's enough time. Let's get started. On March 13, 2015, Matt and I were married at the local courthouse. Exchanging those simple, unaltered vows, we made a commitment to live a life of engagement, a life measured not by length, but by intensity. 8 days later, family and friends stood shoulder to shoulder in our tiny one-bedroom apartment. In the early morning hours of March 21st, Matt would take his final breath. It was and will always be the most profound moment of my life. This isn't my story to tell. I know that. Sure, I slept on the uncomfortable cot, but I didn't undergo endless surgeries. I didn't vomit continually at 3 a.m. while lying on the floor of a hospital bathroom. I wasn't forced to shave my head or call my parents with devastating news of negative scan results. But I do have a responsibility to fight. Perhaps what's most important in Stuart Scott's speech, what comforted Matt in his time of need, is the second clause of the quote. He states, "And when you get too tired to fight, lay down and rest, and let somebody else fight for you." This is where you and I come in. In Matt's well-deserved time of rest, it is now our responsibility to continue in his fight. It's our responsibility to fight for those who need rest. Relay for Life is a context in which we can continue fighting. At the very least, we need more Stuart Scotts. We need more stories of hope, stories of perseverance. 8 days before Matt passed, I made a commitment to him that I would create a life we both would be proud of. I hope through my words tonight I'm able to do that. I hope my words comfort and empower others just as Stuart Scott's words did for Matt. In God's great plan, Matt lived a short yet remarkable life. I'll never forget that precious moment in the recovery room. "That's enough time," he said. "Let's get started." I've started, Matt. We've started. We're fighting the fight. I think he'd be pretty proud of that. Thank you all.